This is it, the final part of the flat-out marathon. Here's something that you probably didn't expect. Trail out. Hi everyone, as always Patrick here. If you're already subscribed, make sure you turn on notifications, otherwise YouTube won't tell you if I posted anything. If you are new to the channel, make sure you watch until the very end and consider subscribing if you like it. Okay, Trail Out. Trail Out was developed by Good Boys and published by PatrykThePro in 2022. It's an indie racing game that deserves more recognition. Why? Let's find out. The graphics. Indie racing games usually have bad graphics, but this game is an exception. Trail Out looks amazing. Amazing textures, amazing effects, amazing lighting. Everything about Trail Out's graphics is amazing. Not only that, when you compare Trail Out to other indie games, not just indie racing games, okay? Any indie game, Trail Out is without a doubt the best looking indie game. For now at least. Seriously, words cannot describe how good this indie game looks. Don't believe me? Play the game yourself and then compare it to any indie game. However, you've probably noticed that I'm not running the game at max settings. That's because when I try to run the game at max settings, I get like 5 FPS. I had to play the game on low graphical settings just so I can get a good frame rate for the video. Oh yeah, the graphical settings. The game supports widescreen resolutions, the game can even run in 4K, there's anti-aliasing, there's high fidelity upscaling, there's VSync if you really need it, the frame rate is smooth, and there's also ray tracing. Speaking of which, this game comes with two executables, the DirectX 11 executable and the DirectX 12 executable. If you want to play the game with ray tracing, you have to play the game using the DirectX 12 executable. It is not available in the DirectX 11 executable, sadly. Also, I don't know if you've noticed this, but I'm running the game using the DirectX 11 executable, because when I try to use the DirectX 12 executable, the game just crashes. Why? I have no idea. The game also has an FOV slider, and the game gives you two separate FOV sliders. One for the third-person camera and one for the first-person camera. And the default FOV for the third-person camera is 100. Amazing! Sadly, the graphical options have one problem. There is no anisotropic filtering and there's no workaround for it. A real shame. What about the optimization? Well, from what I've noticed, the game is quite heavy on most PCs, so you will encounter problems like lagging, stuttering and crashing. So it's safe to say that the optimization is not the best. Or maybe I was just unlucky with my research, I have no idea. So yeah, the graphics are amazing for an indie game. The graphical options are just as great, but the optimization is not the best. Let's talk about the story. Trail Out, unlike the flat-out games, actually has a story. Is it a good story? Let's see. In this game you play as Mihalic. I have definitely butchered that name, I'm sorry. Anyway, the main hero works as a stunt driver, except for the fact that the main hero quit his job because he grew tired of it. When he was driving back home, he had an accident. The front bumper and the rear tires fell off. Just because. Our driver loses control and crashes into something. Because the driver crashed into something off camera. The car explodes upon impact, but the hero gets saved. But how did the hero get saved? I have no idea, the game never explains it. After the accident, the driver was lost and didn't know what to do. But after walking for quite some time, he finds an advertisement for Trailout. More specifically, he finds an advertisement for the Trailout tournament. So the hero signs up, wins the qualifier, and ends up in the last place on the blacklist. And now the bald guy has to get to the top of the blacklist. Or here's the too long didn't read version. In this game you play as a pretty undesirable ex-stuntman trying to get to the top of the series by completing races, demolition derbies and stunts. Lifted almost entirely wholesale from the Flatout series, by the way. There are also some other things that happen in the story, but I'm not going to talk about them because if I do talk about them, then I will enter the spoiler territory and I don't want to talk about spoilers. The character designs are nice even though most of them are lifted from other media. The same thing goes for the personalities, and then there's the voice acting. Let me put it this way. There's a cutscene where one of the characters talks about anime. Skip it. Just skip it. Skip it if you value your ears. To summarize the story, it has its moments, but it's pretty basic. Now let's talk about the gameplay. Originally, I was thinking about taking the flat-out for total insanity approach for this section, aka talking about every single detail, but I've realized that it's actually not necessary for Trailout. Why? Because I've realized that using my standard format is more than enough to explain the gameplay of Trailout. So with that being said, let's talk about the damage model. The damage model is not as good when comparing to Flatout 1 and Flatout 2, but it gets the job done. When you crash into something, you will be able to see dents, scratches, parts will fall off, windows will break, and so on and so forth. Basic stuff, right? Well, kinda. There is one part where the damage model in Trailout really shines, and that's the deformation. The deformation in Trailout is insane. The car bodies are made of really weak materials, and because of that, when you crash into something, the deformation gets crazy. Or should I say, the cars deform like crazy. And like I've said before, it's not as good as Flatout 1 or Flatout 2, but it gets the job done. I do have some issues with the damage model though. Firstly, when your car health is very low, you get this dial telling you that your car is losing power, but in reality it doesn't mean anything. The car still behaves or drives like it's brand new. And secondly, I have to talk about the Flatout games here to prove my point. In Flatout games, when you messed up your car really badly, but you still finished the race, the car automatically repaired itself. But in Trailout, you have to manually repair your car every single time, no matter what you do. And you do have to spend money to repair your car. While the repair costs aren't huge in the beginning of the game, later on those repairs get really expensive, and that's a problem. But I can't complain too much. the damage model is still pretty solid after all. Now let's talk about the physics. This is an interesting topic because Trailout combines two different physics models. It combines the physics of Flatout 1 and Flatout 2. So, Flatout Ultimate Carnage. And just like the damage model, it's not as good as Flatout Ultimate Carnage, but it gets the job done. The physics in Flatout Ultimate Carnage were perfectly balanced between Flatout 1's physics and Flatout 2's physics, but not in Trailout. Like I've said before, Trailout combines the physics of Flatout 1 and Flatout 2. However, the physics in Trailout have more in common with Flatout 1's physics. But Trailout handles this in a completely different way compared to Flatout 1. Basically, every single car and object is heavy, and when you hit something or someone, you can feel the weight of those objects or other cars. But not in a way you'd think. That heavy feeling lasts for only 1 second. Once that second passes, the physics change to Flatout 2's physics. Well, sort of. There's no easy way to describe this because Trailout's physics are a lot more complex than that, but all you need to know is that Trailout's physics are good. Not as good as Flatout Ultimate Carnage or anything like that, but the physics are still good. That's all you need to know. I know that doesn't explain much, but I can't think of a better way to describe the game's physics. With that being said, I guess I'll just talk about the handling. I've heard many people say that the handling in Trailout is a combination of Flatout 1's handling and Flatout 2's handling. Or Flatout Ultimate Carnage's handling if you want. But the truth is, Trailout's handling is nothing like this. First of all, Trailout has this thing called adjustable grip. Each surface type has different grip. For example, asphalt gives you more grip, dirt gives you less grip, and so on and so forth. You can also adjust the grip yourself by customizing your car. For example, you can equip tires that give you more grip on dirt, you can equip tires that give you more grip on asphalt, you can even equip tires that give you more grip on snow. You get the idea. This is something you have to see for yourself because the handling in Trailout is quite complex, just like the physics. Second of all, the game gives you several sliders which you can use to tweak the handling style. Do you want to have slidey cars? You can make them this way. Do you want to have twitchy cars? You can make them this way. Or maybe you just want to balance things out. You can do that. Tell me, do you see what I mean when I say that the handling in Trailout is complex? Now it's time to talk about the cars and the tracks. Let's start with the cars. Finally, something that isn't a combination of Flatout 1 and Flatout 2. There are so many cars and car types in Trailout. In this game you can drive normal cars, rally cars, sports cars. You can even drive cars from other franchises and medias. For example, the BMW M3 GTR from Need for Speed Most Wanted 2005. Yes, you heard that right. The developers are also constantly adding new vehicle types. For example, some time ago they announced motorcycles for Trailout. They're not out yet at the time of me recording this, but yeah. The developers will be adding motorcycles. I have no idea how that will turn out, but well, I guess we'll see. Also, every car and every vehicle type has different stats, so everything feels different. For example, normal cars behave differently compared to rally cars behave differently compared to sports cars, and so on and so forth. The selection is great and every car is different. Or should I say unique? What more could you possibly want? But what about the tracks? Say it with me, it's a combination of Flatout 1 and Flatout 2. You can race on white tracks, you can race on narrow tracks, you can race on snow, you can race on dirt, you can race on asphalt. The variety is here. Some courses can be technical, some courses can be straightforward. Sometimes you can race on arenas, sometimes you can find shortcuts, sometimes you can encounter dynamic time of day and dynamic weather conditions. Every track has a lot of props that you can destroy. Some tracks are good and some tracks are bad, that's all I can say. To summarize the track design, it's very good. The only issue I have with the track design is the fact that some tracks are just too narrow. Time for the worst part of the video, the bad qualities of Trailout. Surprisingly enough, there's only one thing I can complain about, and that one thing is the sound design. Everything sounds weak and low quality. The environmental sounds are weak and low quality, the cars sound weak, and the sound effects are also low quality. Basically, everything about the sound design is weak and is low quality. In conclusion, Trailout feels like a true sequel to Flatout 2. Great graphics with fun and engaging gameplay. A perfect combination. Trailout can easily compete with Flatout games. I should also mention that when you compare Trailout to other indie games, not in the genre, just indie games in every genre, Trailout is easily one of the best indie games ever made. So if you want a good indie game, please play Trailout. It's really good. And with that, we are finally done with the Flatout Marathon. What am I going to do next? I'm not sure. Maybe I will catch up with your requests. I know that one person suggested Ford Racing, just the entire series, so maybe I'll do that. I honestly don't know. Some people also suggested other racing games. Who knows, maybe one day I'll get to them. Like I've said, I'm not sure what I'm gonna do now. I'll probably make a community post about it. You know what? Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm going to make a community post when I talk about what I'm going to do next. Does this sound like a good deal to you? I hope it does, honestly. Well, I don't know what more can I say, really. Play Trailout and stay tuned for more videos. But that pretty much sums up everything I wanted to say in this analysis video. Thank you for watching and I'll see you next time.
Just